Welcome, wrestling fans. RPD Ring Post Daily co-host Awesome One Joey here, and on my channel right here, we are going to be doing pay-per-view reviews, up and downs, nays and yays. But we're also going to start something right here, its own playlist, its own kind. We're going to review every episode of Monday Night Raw. So there's going to be a lot of videos in this playlist, but we're going to go through them all, starting with episode 1 of Monday Night Raw. So this episode of Raw, the very first, was held in New York City, January 11th, 1993, 6 days before I was born. We had 4 matches, a couple segments, just getting the Monday Night Raw gear going. And we're going to go through those matches right now. So I want to give Monday Night Raw episode 1 an up already, because this was the Raw debut. Everything we love and know about WWE, and especially Monday Night Raw nowadays, it all started with the debut episode, and that right there gets an up for me. So Monday Night Raw, it starts off with Bobby the Brain Heenan trying to sneak his way into Raw. He did this throughout the show with a couple different, I wouldn't say attires, but I would say more like costumes, pretending to be one of the commentators' relatives who had to get in the arena, and it was definitely a little bit of comedy added to it. So I want to give that an up, especially now that we don't have Bobby the Brain Heenan around. We can definitely go back and cherish moments like that. So Bobby the Brain, you get it up. So the very first match of Monday Night Raw ever was Yokozuna defeating Koko B. Ware, and this one gets a down because Yokozuna didn't even do anything during the match. He stood there, he let Koko B. Ware bounce off of him, he slammed him, he squashed him, and for a match that was 3 minutes and so many seconds, not even 4 minutes, Koko didn't really do much, and he got the victory. Now, kudos to Koko for, trying to find a way to get the big man down, but he was unsuccessful. And I have to give it a down because the very first match of Monday Night Raw, and it's barely a squash match. So, because of that, Yoko and Koko B. Ware gets a down. The next match on the card was the Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott, versus the tag team called the Executioners. One of those Executioners would later be known as Gilbert. And I have to give this match a down because it was a boring match. You knew the Steiner brothers as a team. You didn't really know the other guys. There was no backstory to these guys. And you knew just watching it, even at that point in time, oh, well, the Steiner brothers are going over. Now, whether you knew it was going to be over in 3 minutes or not my problem, but still, you knew watching this match who was going to win. And, it's not even about the ending of the match, it's how do we get there. These guys just slammed and dunked these guys onto the mat, 1, 2, 3 over. No storytelling being told, no story between beginning and end, just a way to get a cheap pop out of the fans. And because we're talking about the very first episode of Raw and a match with so little meaning, gets a down. So during this episode of Raw, the very first one, I have to give this an up. Doink was in the crowd playing with the fans. I have to give it an up. He was being active in the audience, and a lot of fans probably thought that was really cool. So yes, that does get an up. But it also gets a down because the matches that he was, going into the crowd and playing with the fans in, a lot of fans, you could see, was turning their heads to look at Doink, which takes away from the action in the ring. So I do have to say it gets an up for creatively being active with the fans, but it gets a down for taking away the attention of what's going on in the ring, the thing you pay to see the most. During this episode of Raw, we also get a Razor Ramon interview with Mr. McMahon in the ring. Now, Razor Ramon was going to the Royal Rumble and looking to face Bret the Hitman Hart for the WWE then known as the WWF Championship. I have to give this an up because Razor's interview literally hyped the match. And that's what Monday Night Raw is meant to do. It's meant to be a show that, you know, it progresses the story of what you're going to pay to see at the end of the month. And I feel like, you know, WWE really did take advantage of Monday Night Raw and said, hey, now that we're going to be on TV every week, we can do stuff like this. We can hype matches. We can do interviews. We can have this guy say what he wants about this guy and vice versa. So the fact that they took the very first episode of Raw and took advantage of it to allow, you know, the big championship match coming up in a few weeks at Royal Rumble. The fact that they took the opportunity to let Razor go out there and, you know, prove himself a little bit on the mic, let him say what he had to say, get the thumbs up. That's what you should do in segments on Raw. The next match we have on this first ever episode of Raw is Shawn Michaels defending his IC title against Max Moon, later known as Conan. Now, this match was a decent match. Probably the longest match of the night on the card. And the guys really did go out there and try to make this title match mean something. So I had to give it an up for the work put into the match, and I do have to give it an extra up because it was the first ever title match ever on WWE Raw. This was a great way. I think this is a good match and a good way to kick off the first episode of Monday Night Raw, soon to be thousands of them. We've seen so many titles switch hands, so many title matches on Monday Night Raw in the past, that this was the title match to kick off title matches on WWE Raw. They took advantage of having a weekly show by allowing title matches to happen. And like I said, the decent match they put on gets an up, and the fact that it was the first ever title match on Raw gets an up. Now, also during this episode, they had a little promotion for that year's Rumble coming up, and they announced on TV during this episode 22 Rumble entrants of that match. So 22 Royal Rumble entries were named, and if you think about it, yes, that is a big amount of the field for the Rumble to be announced, but you still had about 8 guys that they didn't announce, which it could have been legends and or future Hall of Famers from that point on that could have came in and wrestled. So yeah, you knew 28 people that was going to be in the Rumble. And Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker, Yokozuna, all these guys that were in the Rumble, those were guys that you would pay to see. The other 8 guys that you didn't know about, that's kind of like today in 2024, as we do this video, you look for those surprise entrants. There's guys that you don't know is going to be in there. You're hoping your favorite comes in. You're hoping that a legend comes back. And that's kind of what this did at that time. It gave you an idea of 22 guys to root for or boo against, but it also gave you that mystery factor of who could the other 8 guys be. So that part right there gets an up. And the last and final match of Monday Night Raw Episode 1 is The Undertaker defeating Damien Demento. Damien Demento, you probably know just as much as him about him as I do. Now, The Undertaker, the reason this gets an up is because back then, at that time, at that moment, maybe it didn't seem like a big deal. Undertaker main eventing the very first episode of WWE Monday Night Raw. But nowadays, in 2024, The Undertaker is one of the greatest that ever did it. He is a Hall of Famer. He has sold out so many WrestleManias, so many events, that nowadays we can look back and say, for all the wrestlers that were on that roster at the time, Undertaker deserved to main event it. It's one of them things you might not appreciate at the time, but later on down the road, you learn to appreciate it. So Undertaker getting to main event the very first Monday Night Raw ever. Not only does it feel sweet, not only does it feel well-deserved at this point, but it gets an up. Now, the one thing I have to give a down to is Crush came out and ends Raw by chasing Doink the Clown around. He basically tells Doink the Clown, hey, you pull any of your tricks or mess with the fans or superstars again, I'm gonna tear you limb from limb. Doink squirts him with a little toy plastic squirt gun. They end Raw with him chasing Doink around the ring. It gets a down because it really wasn't something that you're looking forward to. It's not the way you would end a Monday Night Raw nowadays. And to be the very first episode of Monday Night Raw and end it in such poor fashion, it's a down. And the last down that I have to give to this episode of Monday Night Raw, the very first one, is in a dark match after the show, Crush defeated Bam Bam Bigelow. It gets it down because we only had 4 matches on this episode. Now, yes, back then, Raw, including commercial time, ran about 45 minutes. But I feel like this is a match that you could have had on TV, giving it a total of 5 televised matches, and maybe you could have had a decent match between Crush and Bam Bam, 2 big guys. But to be the very first episode of Monday Night Raw and have that dark match, have that as a dark match, and not, even considered a match to put on the show, down. It gets a down. Sure, the fans in the audience were probably happy to see that maybe decent match as a dark match, but when you're putting on the very first episode of Monday Night Raw, you're supposed to go all out. You're supposed to show the fans this is the action you can see every week. And the fans at home did not get to see the Bam Bam versus Crush match, and I don't know if the match was good, bad, or decent. I don't know. None of us know because a lot of us weren't there to see it. Only the so many fans in attendance were. So for them to put that match on as a dark match and on the show, my show here, I do what I want. I give it a down. Well, guys, that was the very first episode of Monday Night Raw. We have a lot more to cover. We get 7 ups for Raw and 5 downs for Raw. So the show wins in a positive number with 7 ups and 5 downs. We'll have to keep track about how many episodes win, but we're going to go through every factor. We're going to go through all the segments and matches and see what each episode of Raw brings to the table. Episode 1, it comes out with more positives than negatives, so this episode, we'll give it an up. Keep watching, guys. You'll see more current pay-per-views or PLEs. You'll see a lot more retro episode reviews of this and that. And right now, we're focusing on the main PLEs in WWE, and right now, we're going back also and doing the retro Raws, the Raws from the past. And we'll start another series on another show, but right now, we're going to continue to do all the Raws from episode 1 to the very current one. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also follow Ring Post Daily on Facebook. We appreciate you for checking us out. I appreciate you for checking this channel out. And don't forget, happy wrestling.